Did you know that all the information about every person on Earth is said to be recorded in a mysterious place known as the Book of Destiny, or what some call the Cosmic Data Library? It contains all knowledge and details of every being, from birth, through the present, and even into the future. Interestingly, it doesn't exist in a fixed location. Instead, it functions like a universal Wi-Fi network spread throughout the cosmos. We humans are like mobile phones, always capable of connecting to it. The only problem is, most of us don't know the password, which is why we're unable to access it. In reality, there are a few special individuals who can connect to this massive data source. From there, they gain access to limitless knowledge, even memories from past lives of anyone, and glimpses into the future of humanity. Famous prophets like Vanga and Edgar Cayce claim that their visions came directly from this mysterious connection. But it's not just prophets. Artists, inventors, and even mathematical geniuses like Srinivasa Ramanujan, the greatest mathematician in India, have said their insights and formulas didn't come from textbooks, but from something much more mystical. What exactly is this massive data library, also known as the Book of Life? And why can't humans gain access to its password for connection? Today we'll explore the cosmic database believed to have existed since prehistoric times. A vast storage of all information in the universe, from the past to the future. In ancient Indian epics, there is mention of a non-physical entity that exists throughout the universe called the Akashic Records. Some believe that these Akashic records correspond to the Alaya consciousness in the Buddhist concept of the three consciousnesses. To understand the Akashic records more deeply, we must start with the story of a mathematical genius who is said to have traveled from the future to share his knowledge with humanity, Srinivasa Ramanujan. During his short life, Ramanujan wrote more than 3,900 mystical mathematical formulas and theorems. Amazingly, none of these were derived through conventional logical reasoning. This led many scholars of his time to doubt his work. Only after his death did people begin to validate and realize the depth of what he had discovered. But here's what's truly mind-blowing. Ramanujan didn't think like an ordinary human. It was as if his mind was receiving transmissions from a timeless source of knowledge. Hello, everyone. Have you ever wondered, how could an ordinary man write such deep and mystical mathematical formulas? The answer lies in the story of the Indian mathematical genius, Srinivasa Ramanujan. He was born on December 2nd, 1887, into a once-respected Brahmin family that had fallen into poverty. His family survived solely on his father's modest salary as a clerk. In 1898, at the age of 11, Ramanujan entered high school. It was then that his passion for mathematics exploded. Ironically, despite his love for the subject, he repeatedly failed to get into college, even failing math exams multiple times over 2 years. A strange but true paradox. In 1906, he was reluctantly admitted to a local college, but just 3 years later, he dropped out, as his obsession with mathematics led him to neglect other subjects. Fortunately, through a mix of fate and premonition, Ramanujan found a job as an accountant at a trust office under a senior official in Madras, now Chennai. Recognizing Ramanujan's extraordinary gift, this official allowed him to stay home and focus solely on mathematics, while still receiving a full salary. And so, day by day, Ramanujan poured his mind into mathematics, filling notebook after notebook with his mysterious formulas and discoveries. However, due to his lack of formal university training and no official qualifications, his work remained unrecognized for a long time. Because Ramanujan never received formal university education, his mathematical work couldn't be officially published. This led him to feel deeply isolated and discouraged. In 1913, with nothing to lose, Ramanujan decided to take a chance. He gathered his handwritten formulas and mailed them to a prominent mathematician of the time, G.H. Hardy, a professor at the University of Cambridge and a fellow of the Royal Society. In the letter, Ramanujan was upfront about his situation. "I never attended university. My education ended at high school, but I have an unshakable passion for mathematics." The mysterious and intuitively derived formulas Ramanujan sent left Hardy stunned. Hardy even remarked, "While we are mathematicians by training, Ramanujan is a creator of mathematics." Soon after, Hardy extended an invitation to Ramanujan to come to Cambridge to study and conduct research. In 1914, Ramanujan arrived in Cambridge. However, reality hit hard. His formulas did not follow conventional logical derivations, and because of that, he faced harsh criticism from traditional mathematicians. They questioned, even mocked him, unable to comprehend how a self-taught man could write things that surpassed the understanding of their time. The comrade also said that Uttram women were frauds from India. This made Ramanujan feel very angry. Besides, Mr. Hardy also felt very confused. Without going through any logical reasoning process, then how did Ramanujan get these formulas? And the next dialogue between Ramanujan and Hardy completely overturned the worldview of the British scholar Robert. Ramanujan said that these formulas were not the result of painstaking thinking when he was awake, but were reminders from the Indian goddess Lakshmi in his dreams. Suddenly he had a feeling, and when he woke up, he wrote down those formulas. These words of Ramanujan obviously had no persuasive power to the mathematical community. However, Mr. Hardy did not give up on Ramanujan. He told Ramanujan, "You don't need to give me all the formulas. Just 12 of them is enough," because this was extremely important for Ramanujan's academic career later on. It could both eliminate the doubting voices and also, thanks to the research of Ramanujan, he gained a firm position in the mainstream academic world, paving the way for his work to be passed down to later generations. In the end, even Yamanote-san was convinced by Mr. Hardy and began to pay attention to the process of forming those formulas. However, the cold environment in Britain severely affected Ramanujan's health. Throughout the entire winter, he coughed constantly and later even developed tuberculosis. Even while suffering from illness, Ramanujan continued to reason and calculate. In just 5 short years, he published 28 academic papers. In 1919, due to his worsening condition, Ramanujan returned to his homeland. Only a year later, he passed away in Madras at the age of just 32. The news of Ramanujan's death caused great sorrow throughout the mathematical community at the time, especially for Mr. Hardy. At Ramanujan's memorial, Hardy said, "The death of Ramanujan is the most unbearable pain of my life." Before his death, Ramanujan left behind a formula known as the simulation of a function in space-time. No one could understand the mystery contained within it. Later, with the continuous development of science, the academic world discovered that theta function simulations could be used to study the spread of cancer cells and the movement of tsunamis. In 1973, the European mathematician Pierre Deligne was the first to simulate the theta function, and because of this, he received the Fields Medal, the highest honor in mathematics. In the 1990s, a physicist proposed that the simulation of the theta function could be used to explain the mysteries of black holes in the universe. But in fact, Ramanujan had already proposed the theta simulation more than 50 years before Stephen Hawking's black hole radiation statement. In 2000, Time magazine in the United States selected Ramanujan as one of the most influential figures of the 20th century and honored him as the greatest Indian mathematician in 1,000 years. Yet such a mathematical genius claimed that the formulas he discovered came to him in dreams. Just like Nikola Tesla, the man who laid the foundation for modern science with countless inventions and ideas said to be far ahead of his time, his era was the era of alternating current, radio, Tesla, remote control, and wireless energy transmission, such pioneering fields of science. Normally, people would scoff at and not believe in mystical things like the Akashic Records, but no one expected that Tesla, the great master of science, actually revered an Indian monk named Swami Vivekananda as his teacher. This monk deeply studied ancient Indian philosophy and metaphysics, and Tesla firmly believed that the Akashic Records truly existed. In the book, The Greatest Achievements of Mankind, published in 1907, Tesla said, "All matter perceivable comes from a fundamental substance. It is so subtle that it exceeds our understanding and fills all of space. That is the ether, also called Akasha, the energy source from which all life grows and develops, possessing infinite creativity and existing in everything and every phenomenon." Nikola Tesla also repeatedly mentioned his extraordinary power of visualization. He said he could clearly see every detail of an object in his mind without needing to touch any models, drawings, or perform any experiments. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, don't forget to leave a comment, hit the like button, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any upcoming videos. Thank you so much. The images, like in a vivid 3, similar to those in Doan Kai or Baguio movies, were directly generated in his brain, and the experimental process was merely a reproduction of those mental images. So why did Tesla possess such extraordinary abilities? Tesla once said, "My brain is only a receiver. There is a core in the universe from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated the secrets of this core, but I know that it exists, and further, I can feel its presence." Finally, Tesla stated something very strange. He said that, "If one day scientists begin to study non-physical phenomena, like acoustic waves, then the progress made in the next 10 years will surpass all the progress of the past." Because of this, many believe that perhaps Tesla had already discovered the secret of the Akashic Records. In 1923, a 12-year-old girl named Vanga from the rural village of Valia was playing in a field when suddenly a tornado appeared and lifted her into the air. When she was found, the little girl was barely breathing. Unfortunately, her eyes were covered in sand and dust, causing such pain that she couldn't open them. Later, even after undergoing 3 surgeries, she completely lost her eyesight. Surprisingly, when God closes one door, he opens another. Not long after the accident, Vanga suddenly gained a remarkable power of seeing the future and began to deliver incredibly accurate predictions to local residents. Some of Vanga's predictions were so precise that politicians and local leaders came to the village to visit her. And indeed, her forecasts were astonishingly accurate. By the 1980s, the blind prophet had changed her name to Vanga. In the local Valia language, Baba Vanga means Grandmother Vanga. After that, she gave thousands upon thousands of predictions, including the date of Stalin's death, the 9/11 tragedy, the nuclear explosion in Chernobyl, the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, the K-141 Kursk submarine disaster in Russia, and many other world-changing events. Because of this, Baba Vanga later became the subject of research by scientists from Bulgaria and the Soviet Union. They began conducting a series of scientific tests and interviews with her and people close to her. One remarkable moment was when Baba Vanga said, "It's like I can connect with the Akashic Records. I can see everything in my mind. When I look at someone, I can see their entire life, from birth to death, as if I'm watching a movie." The experiences of people like Ramanujan, Nikola Tesla, Baba Vanga, and ancient Indian sages suggest to us that the universe is far more complex than we can imagine. And perhaps the Akashic Records, or ether, mentioned by Tesla and Baba Vanga, are not just mystical ideas, but a kind of intuition, an energy flow that only certain extraordinary minds have tapped into. The term Akashic comes from Sanskrit, meaning ether, the primal energy of the universe. In the ancient Greek philosophical biography, Life of Apollonius of Tyana, there is a story that says Apollonius once in India, Nikola Tesla once met a wise sage. He asked the sage, "What is the universe made of?" The sage replied, "It is composed of fundamental elements." Tesla continued, "Is it made of water, air, earth, and fire, the four classical elements?" The sage answered, "No. There is a fifth element, called Akasha, or ether. Ether is the essence of the divine. Just as humans need air to live, nature itself needs ether to thrive and grow properly. Therefore, ether is the foundation of all things, a non-physical substance, invisible to the naked eye. At a higher level, it is a mystical repository of knowledge that stores all information of the universe. It is like a vast metaphysical database that contains both the cosmic origins of life and the unique experiences of every individual soul, mapped out across different points in space and time. Until the early 20th century, the Akashic Records were still considered a part of Western esotericism, with very few daring to explore them deeply. However, from the moment the universe was born, the Akashic Records have always existed. Among the 20 most famous prophets in the United States, Edgar Cayce made a major breakthrough in the study of the Akashic Records, and because of that, he developed the ability to see into the future. Edgar Cayce was born in 1877 in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, USA. From a very young age, his parents discovered that he could see visions that adults couldn't, and he would often talk to the air. Very soon, Cayce discovered that he possessed a strange power. He only needed to take a short nap, and after waking up, he could remember everything in a book, even if he hadn't read it thoroughly before. Thanks to this supernatural ability, he quickly completed 8th grade. But due to the family's poor financial situation, Cayce couldn't continue studying. He had to drop out of school and go to work to support his family. His first job was as a helper at a bookstore. Using his extraordinary memory, Cayce quickly memorized the names of all the books, where they were located, and how much they cost, dramatically improving sales efficiency. As a result, he became the bookstore's top-selling employee. However, that golden period didn't last long. One day in 1899, after that, Edgar Cayce suddenly developed a severe case of laryngitis and lost his voice completely. He visited doctors everywhere, but none could offer an effective cure. Unable to speak, he lost his job as a salesman and had to take on a quieter job, as a photographer's assistant. In the year 1900, hypnosis was very popular in America. At that time, a well-known hypnotist named Al Lane suggested that Cayce try hypnosis to restore his voice. After several sessions, Cayce, under guided hypnosis, entered a deep trance and was able to speak again normally. However, once he woke up, his condition returned. Gradually, Cayce began to lose faith in using hypnosis as a treatment. But just then, an amateur poet and doctor made a bold suggestion. Cayce should self-direct his own hypnosis to fully awaken his subconscious mind. In this session, Dr. Lane asked Cayce questions and let him speak for himself. What exactly is wrong with my body, and how should it be treated? Cayce lay asleep on the sofa and replied, "This condition is not a disease of the vocal cords, but rather a disorder related to." After that, Dr. Lane asked Edgar Cayce to try directing blood circulation toward his throat. Strangely enough, the skin around Cayce's neck immediately turned red and felt hot. After several such experiments, the voice that had been gone for nearly a year was completely restored. That day, March 31st, 1901, marked the moment when Cayce truly opened the door to another world. Hearing about Cayce's miraculous experience, a couple came to seek his help. They had a 6-year-old daughter named Amy, who had suffered brain development issues after catching a severe flu 4 years earlier. Although she was already 6, she still couldn't speak or call her parents, and occasionally experienced full-body spasms. Her parents had taken her to every doctor they could find, but none had a cure. With no options left, they contacted Cayce, hoping for a miracle. Cayce visited their home to examine Amy. Before he entered a trance, Amy's parents asked him, "Aren't you going to conduct any medical tests or diagnoses?" Cayce calmly replied, "I have no medical knowledge. I've never even gone to college," Cayce said. "I can't perform any kind of medical diagnosis." The atmosphere became very awkward. But what happened next shocked Amy's parents. While in a trance, Cayce stated that the real cause of Amy's condition went back 4 years earlier. Just before she got the flu, she had fallen from a horse-drawn carriage and injured her spinal cord. The flu virus later infected the damaged area, affecting the brain and halting its development. Amy's parents paused and then remembered. Yes, 4 years ago, such an accident had indeed occurred. Even more surprising, the treatment Cayce prescribed was very simple: spinal adjustment therapy. After just a few weeks, Amy began to show real improvement. For the first time in years, she was able to call out to her parents. From then on, Cayce's ability to read the body under hypnosis was used exclusively to treat patients. It wasn't until 1929 that people began to discover his prophetic abilities. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, don't forget to leave a comment, hit the like button, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any upcoming videos. Thank you so much. Back in 1925, someone had asked Cayce about the future of the global economy. At that time, World War I had just ended and the American economy was booming. But Cayce once said, "Next year, in 1929, the global economy will undergo a massive shift. Money will slip out of people's hands." And sure enough, in October 1929, the Wall Street stock market crashed. The Great Depression quickly spread from the United States to the rest of the world. Unemployment soared to 25%. Beyond that, Edgar Cayce also successfully predicted Japan's invasion of Manchuria in 1931, the start and end of World War II, the death of U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, the independence of India, and the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. When people asked him, "Where do you get all this information from?" Cayce replied, "Part of it comes from interpreting the subconscious of each individual. Another part comes from the Akashic Records." However, he also admitted, "I cannot access or read the Akashic Records while awake, nor can I pass on to anyone the method by which I read them." Each time he entered a trance state, Edgar Cayce would speak aloud the information he received. His students would carefully transcribe everything he said. According to Edgar Cayce's research, the Akashic Records are made up of two components. The first component is the existence of the universe, also known as the divine map of life. This map is invisible, formless, unchangeable, and eternally immutable. The second component includes all actions and experiences of every soul through the physical body during various incarnations across different points in time. For over 40 years, Cayce repeatedly entered a trance-like state, providing humanity with accurate and insightful information. He called this process interpreting the Akashic Records. During these readings, Cayce claimed he could access all information stored in Akashic, which he also referred to as the Book of Life. Throughout his lifetime, Edgar Cayce left behind over 15,000 recorded readings, some of which have not yet come true. These unfulfilled readings are believed to be prophecies for humanity's future, drawn from the Akashic Records. For example, Cayce once mentioned, "In the future, a new form of healing will emerge." Edgar Cayce once predicted, "In the future, humanity will discover a new method of healing, one that allows the transformation between the soul's energy system and the physical body. This would elevate modern medicine to an entirely new level. At that point, science and theology will no longer be separate, but will instead merge into one. People will begin to accept the existence of the soul and no longer fear death. Instead, they will bravely face it and look forward to their next life. Along with this awakening, more and more people will believe in the concept of universal oneness. One harmony, one grass, one tree, one leaf, everything is one. In this world, between all things, living or non-living, there exists a deep, interwoven connection. Even their origins are the same." Finally, Cayce left behind a prophetic message about China. One day in the future, China will become the field of messianic faith. People will strive to live by spiritual belief. At first glance, this may sound far-fetched, but to those who believe, that day is just a moment away. The word Christianity, used by Cayce, while often translated as Christian doctrine, was meant in a broader sense, a spiritual foundation rooted in salvation and truth. Christianity, while commonly used in modern terms, actually originates from the Hebrew word meaning Messiah or Savior. In English, it is translated as Christ or Messiah. Therefore, Cayce's prophecy about China becoming the field of messianic faith can also be interpreted as, in the future, a new form of spiritual belief may emerge in China, grounded in salvation, harmony, and awakening. One might ask, why do so many prophets mention China? This may be because China is a unique nation in many ways. According to the World Religious Culture Journal, issue number 1, published in 1998, global surveys showed that among the 1.3 billion people worldwide who do not believe in religion, 1.2 billion live in China. There, people often do not dare to speak openly about their faith in public, and some may face suppression or persecution. However, from the perspective of the cosmic records in Akashic, all spiritual transformations have already been recorded. In one of Edgar Cayce's readings, he described the origin of humanity from the Akashic Records as follows. In the beginning, the world was darkness. There was no concept of time, no notion of space. Then the Messiah spoke. Let there be light. And there was light. That light became this place. The light that Edgar Cayce referred to was not sunlight, but rather the life force light of the entire universe. In the beginning, each of us was a pure beam of light, because matter at that time was still subtle and spiritual, existing in the form of pure soul essence. The consciousness of the Creator in that era is referred to as the first humanity. About 1,050,000 years ago, these soul beings began to travel through space and entered the third dimension for the first time, Earth. At that point, we were like tiny thought forms, drifting and flying across space. This stage is known as the second humanity. These tiny thought beings longed to express themselves, so they merged with mountains, rivers, and elements of nature, forming semi-divine beings, just like those described in ancient mythology. Giants, dwarfs, unicorns, mermaids, sphinxes, beings with human faces and bird heads, divine humans. This became the third humanity. Around 200,000 years ago, 5 new human races began to emerge, each possessing 51 distinct genetic traits. They appeared across Asia, Europe, Atlantis, Lemuria, or Mu continent, Africa. These 5 races represented the 5 primary senses of humanity: sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch. They are the humans we know today, referred to as the fourth humanity. Edgar Cayce said, "One day, a new form of humanity will emerge, the fifth humanity." The fifth humanity, according to Edgar Cayce, is a stage of evolution where each individual is born with a sacred purpose, to become a companion to the Creator. Therefore, the true nature of every soul that incarnates on Earth is one of unity with the Creator, and also the core essence of the universe itself: love. Upon hearing this, some might think it sounds like a moral lesson, but Cayce declared, "Love is the beginning, the very light that the Creator once spoke of. Every soul born on Earth has the potential to connect to the Akashic Records. However, one's mindset, life experience, personal circumstances, and intentions will directly affect how they interpret the Akashic Records. Only those with a pure desire to help others and a selfless, egoless heart can truly interpret the Akashic Records objectively." In a letter Edgar Cayce once wrote to his daughter, he said, "There exists a tremendous force in the universe, one that science has yet to discover or explain fully. This energy governs and controls all existence, lying behind all phenomena in the universe." Yet humanity has still not truly realized that the greatest power in the universe is love. This energy can explain everything, while also bringing purpose to one's destiny. Therefore, the ultimate essence of the Akashic Records may be a cosmic dream, in which every soul learns to love and accept unconditionally through their experiences on Earth, and eventually, to understand and transform themselves. And what about you? What do you think about this? In your opinion, what exactly is the love that Cayce referred to? If you were to change yourself into a truly better person, then what would be the hardest part for you? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below. And that brings us to the end of today's exploration. Thank you for your time. See you next time.